Henry, if you don't object, I'd like to lock you in for the night. I don't mean to sound rude, but I don't trust you, if it is you or Harltz or a little of both making these decisions." Henry slightly fixed his hair, slightly smiling, speaking in a sigh. "I would expect at least that much from you. In fact, I must encourage handcuffs as well." Colt looked to Henry. "Isn't that a bit much? That is not how we treat guests. Please, I must insist upon it. I will not have father manipulate me into helping him. I am not always in control of what I do, so please do as I ask." Colt let out a deep breath. "If that's what you want, I'll lead you to your room, then with the most highest grade lock system, and find you a pair of handcuffs. If you are not bothered by it, I bring my own." From his jacket pocket he pulled out a pair. "I always have them on my person in case of such times as this." I looked at Henry as he held them up. "Well, didn't you come prepared?" Henry scratched the back of his head hard, scuffing his hair. "Yes, well, one can never be too prepared, my dear. Now, if you excuse me, sleep is my only escape from the pain." I nodded, and Colt showed him the way, which might have been unnecessary since Henry knew this place even better than us. When Colt returned, he looked to us. "Henry has agreed to come with us to this Aeon Villa, though I'm not sure it is his full decision-making, but I will not turn down the opportunity for him, even if it could be a trap, which more than likely it is." When Colt was finished, he returned to me and the doctor as we talked on about Henry's memories. But could we rely on them being real memories and not made up by Harltz? Colt listened in silently until the conversation dulled down to murmurs. "Doctor, you should go rest up. Big day coming up." The doctor looked puzzled. "It is?" Colt looked rather serious. "Yes, I and my snow feather will accompany Henry to this town of Aeon Villa, and I want you to join us." The doctor shook his head. "I'm much too old for this sort of thing. I'd slow you down, not to mention my classes and caring for your sister and others in need of me. Not to mention you are both new parents. What about your children?" Colt looked somewhat annoyed but kept his composure. "Doctor, in the most respect I can give, it wasn't a matter of a request. You will be coming with us. Lavender is in good hands. If we leave now, then less likely complications will arise. I'm allowing my second to stay and run things. Your classes can be picked back up when you return. Your other patients are nothing more than common colds and a few broken bones. Grandmother can tend to them. As for my family, you will trust I have the best intentions in my decision. Don't question that again. The herd's children have grown up many days and moons on mare's milk, and the herd takes care of each child as their own." Dr. Furnius seemed flustered. "But my work, not to mention, I'll slow you down. These old legs of mine are not made for speed, and—" Colt smiled. "That's what horses are for, Doctor." Furnius let out a puff. "I've never been on such a thing. I don't plan on starting now." I spoke up. "But don't you see, Furnius, this is your greatest work. If this town is full of medical advancements, then maybe you can find you a second one to follow in your footsteps, and who knows, maybe you can learn a few new things to help you in your work." We could see he was thinking on my words as Colt added, "Don't worry, I'll pick you out a gentle pony." "Well, if I must. I just don't like it. I'll start packing. I'm going to need a lot of liniments." Colt again said goodnight to the doctor as he walked off. "Oh yes, one last thing, Doc. Bring Henry with you when you come to camp tomorrow. I wish to leave early with the sunrise." The doctor didn't turn, only nodded, putting up his hand in acknowledgement. Colt then looked to me. "I hope you don't mind the short notice, but the sooner we leave, the sooner our return. I know it's a lot to ask that you come with us, having to leave our daughter with the herd." I smiled the best I could. "I understand. I'd want to come with you. After packing, let's spend the night all together as a family, all four of us." That night, we announced to the herd our plans, not to the liking of some, but Colt assured them this was a necessary journey and not one of frivolity. We spent the afternoon packing with the help of the herd, gathering the horses, feeding, and watering them. That night we spent with our son and daughter. It was early. We rose up, still dark out. We kissed our children as Gretchen came in to watch over them. Outside awaited Abel, who seemed nervous. "Abel, you will be well. I've given this task to you before." Abel cleared his throat, "But only some nights or days. This is going to be longer than all them put together." Colt put his hand up on Abel's shoulder. "I wouldn't be leaving this to you if I didn't know you could handle whatever comes your way. Take care of the herd, my children, and your wife above all else. We will return in hopefully less than 2 months' time." Abel took in a deep breath. "I hope your journey is a swift one." Colt smiled, going over to the horses. He patted his horse Mac's side. "Hey boy, how's it going?" Being an animatronic with memories of humans and horse, Mac had found himself at odds on whether to be all horse or part, so normally he wasn't one for talking, but he did accommodate when need be in his deep, smooth voice with a yawn. "It's much too early for human or horse." Colt laughed. "Sorry for disturbing your sleep. I'm afraid it will be early mornings for a while." Mac let out a puff. "Why do I have the hankering for some coffee?" Colt just patted his side, then went over to the pony he had promised the doctor. True to his word, the pony was an older castrated male named Old Drum, a dusty chestnut. In his youth he was a spitfire, but now he was no more than a smolder. My horse was now allowed in the village, seeing how I killed a great spirit and saved everyone from Harlts. The herd now accepted the curly coats. Next to Atropos was a red horse named Rosebud. She was young, not chosen by anyone. She was easily spooked, and I had questioned why Colt chose her of all horses. His reply was that most animals can detect changes in a person, even smaller ones. Rose, being so easy to spook, would give us more warning of any changes Henry might be facing ahead, of even Henry knowing himself. A gentler horse might ignore them, but not Rose. Normally, we would ride bareback, but on long journey, especially with some who rarely or never rode a horse, we saddled up so they would not feel singled out. The doctor came grumbling, holding quite a few bags. Henry still in handcuffs, helping carry some heavy liquids in large bottles. "What is this?" Colt asked in amusement. "My necessities," the doctor said in a puzzled, tired manner. Colt shook his head, taking the time to unlock Henry's cuffs, then taking the bags from the doctor, one clearly his medical bag, placing every bag on the ground by the doctor's side, then picking up the medical bag. Colt looked at several of the bags. "Which one of these is your clothes?" "All of them," the doctor said oddly with some hesitation. Colt looked to the doctor, then started opening the bags, taking the 3 bags and turning them into one, making sure to put the doctor skin rub in the to-go bag. Pulling out a dress suit, holding it up, Colt smiled. "I don't think you will be needing this where we are going, doctor." Then placing it carefully into a stay bag as the herd giggled from a distance. "Your pony has to carry you. It doesn't need to be carrying 2 of you. What's the liquid Henry's carrying there? Water?" "No, it's rubbing alcohol." Colt took the bottles, handing them to Abel. "The only liquid we will be bringing with us is water. This is much too heavy for a long journey, so I'm afraid it will have to stay here. The books, too." The doctor looked at Colt. "Very well, but don't blame me if any of this is needed. I will be bringing my book for notes. If I am to learn anything, I at least need my pen and notebook." Colt found the book among many others, tossing it toward the doctor, who fumbled to catch it. Colt looked to Henry. "You good to ride? Do you have anything to bring?" Henry took a handkerchief from his pocket, wiping his brow. "I travel as I came with what I had, though I don't mind if Furnius uses my horse for one of his bottles. It could be of great use." Colt looked to the doctor, picking up the bottle. "Seems to be your lucky day," putting the liquid in a leather bag, putting it to Rose's rump, patting her slightly as she twitched. Colt helped Dr. Furnius onto his pony, which was quite a sight to see. Oh, how I must have looked to Colt with my first time getting on a horse myself. I couldn't help but smile at the thought. As I watched the frail doctor scramble to Colt, pushing him up, the good doctor nearly falling off the other side of Old Drum, Colt patted the old pony and handed the reins to Dr. Furnius, making sure he had a firm grip so not to drop them. "These are the rein. Pull left, you go left. Pull right, you go right. To stop, you pull back. Easy enough?" Colt said with a smirk. The doctor cleared his throat, straightening himself. "And to go?" "You don't have to worry about that. Ole Drum here will follow easily the others when we move. He will move with the herd." Dr. Furnius straightened his back the best he could. "All righty then," he said nervously. Henry went over to his horse. "Her name is Rosebud. She's nothing you can't handle." Henry went over to the horse. "She is a beauty. I think for the time being I'll call her Rose Red. Seems more fitting." From his pocket, he pulled out a hard candy, letting her nibble it off his hand as she crunched it to powder. He climbed up on his saddle. Colt checked the cinch. She takes to a soft hand, but don't let her push to get her way either, as Rose snorted out through her nostrils. Colt and I climbed on our horses. Colt looked out to the herd as his leather creaked with his movements. Listen up, herd of the new and old. Abel here is to be the sole leader till my return. If my return shall never be, then look to him forever as the new leader until he is defeated in challenge. The herd all looked up to us, then their eyes went to Abel. Colt put his hand down. Abel, brother, do well for the herd's sake and our families. Abel held to Colt's arm for a long moment, then finally spoke. I will do as you ask, my stallion. Please return swiftly and safely. With that, we walked the horses out of the camp as we went toward the fields. When we would normally pick up the pace, we still slowed for the doctor needing to get used to riding. He was bouncing like rubber upon his saddle. Henry could be heard giving him tips, but it was somewhat amusing. Colt looked over to me. Snowfeather, take the lead a moment, he said in a calm voice. Thinking he was to help the doctor, I had no question of doing as he asked. Colt pulled Mac back and went to the side of Henry. I could hear some talking, but couldn't make out what was being conversed. Then Colt went to the doctor's side. You're going to get sore quick this way, Doc. The doctor's voice was jumbled. Well, it's not by choice. Relax, you're too tense. Let yourself flow with your horse. Loosen up your legs, you won't fall off. The doctor did as he was instructed. Colt looked him up and down for a few minutes. Better. The day passed. Colt had taken the lead again, me by his side. Do you know how to get to where we are going? No, Colt said with a smile, looking straight ahead. Then how do you know which way to go? I asked. Colt leaned down and patted Mac's neck. You have it handled, don't you, Mac? Mac swished his tail. Do you even need to really ask? I was created there. I looked to Mac. Wait, you weren't made at Hart's Land? Mac seemed irritated. No, I was created at Aeon Villa. For the most part, I was transferred to the park with instructions on how I could be updated. This I found interesting. Mac never really spoke of his creation, and he clearly didn't like to be asked about it. Why is that old woman in my head? Mac said, very irritated. I looked to Colt as he turned to look at me. It's all right. Hart's is still where we left him, in the box. I figure that is the best place to keep him till we get back. We can talk to Abel through grandmother and Mac's connection. It probably will not be a strong enough signal to be fully useful, since I haven't had the time to test it out properly yet, but grandmother helped sort it all out, so I'm sure it will work for most of the journey. We won't be using it unless need be.